Chicago's Suburban SQL Server User Group. My co-chapter leader, Lori, could not be with us this evening. She's unfortunately feeling a little under the weather. A few handful of announcements and whatnot that I'd like to cover before we get started. A couple of important announcements about the next two meetings. The next two meetings will not be here, and the dates have changed. So next month we're meeting the fourth Thursday of the month at Microsoft, 2 buildings over. Yes?
Is the registration already open?
Not yet, but it will be. So this one will fill fast, because if you don't know who Paul Randall is, he is one of the best in the biz. As far as SQL Server is concerned, he's actually written some of the DBCC commands, and Tom can probably tell other crazy stories about him. In either case, we will be over at Microsoft. We have a much larger facility over there. Thank you to Tom, our Microsoft liaison up front here, who is dutifully ignoring me. It's okay. I know, I'm teasing you. But thank you, Tom, for being able to get us some larger space at Microsoft for the next 2 meetings. And then SQL Skills via Paul has offered to do another user group for us on Tuesday, May 9th, which is the same week as the downtown group. Rafal is very big in the data science world, so we're going to have something a little bit different than our usual DBA kind of presentation, but he is actually in town teaching the practical data science class for SQL Skills during that week in May, which is why we were able to welcome him that night. So details, of course, will be forthcoming via the usual channels.
I have a question before I continue.
Yes.
The Microsoft offices, is that going to be downstairs?
I don't know.
It'll be on the second floor,
Thank you.
which is when you come in off the parking garage, the main level parking garage, that's the second floor.
Okay, yeah, because I was there last month, but we went downstairs, and it's a huge area. Because before we used to go to the 3rd floor.
Yeah, no, this is on two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we redid the whole second floor.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good to know. Thank you. All right. So how many people here went to Chicago SQL Saturday? Raise your hands. Awesome. I'm happy to see that. So I hope you guys all had a good time with Chicago SQL Saturday. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, and if you didn't, well, I'd like to hear your feedback. So please, talk to me afterwards if there's things that we could do to change and to improve the event. We always want to try and make it a good event for all of you guys. If you did make it, great. If you didn't, I'm sorry, we did hit the wait list very fast. However, what I'd like to point out is that there are 2 regional SQL Saturdays coming up in the next couple of months. Madison is just 2.5 weeks away. And as I was telling a few other people earlier tonight, Madison, sure, you may not think of it as a very large SQL Saturday, given this, Madison's not really that big of a town. On the contrary, Madison SQL Saturday actually rivals the size of Chicago in both speakers and attendance, and they attract a lot of top-notch speakers. So if you love Chicago SQL Saturday, and or if you weren't able to make it to Chicago SQL Saturday, go to Madison. Be advised that they generally do hit their wait list as well. To my knowledge, they have not hit the wait list yet, but they often do. They often do so. So, and Madison, you can get there, and you can drive early in the morning, or you can stay the night before, whatever the case may be. I've actually stayed the night before, done early morning sessions, stayed through the day, and then around 6 o'clock, then I hit the road and I'm back home. So. Iowa City is on June 10th. That is also about the same distance as Madison, actually. Now, the thing about Iowa City that I'll tell you guys is that it is a much smaller SQL Saturday. It's definitely a different kind of experience than a Chicago SQL Saturday, which is large and chaotic. On the other hand, what's really nice about it being smaller is that it's much more intimate. It's a much better opportunity to talk to people, to network with people, to be able to actually get one-on-one time with some of the speakers that are there. So while there may be less people there, it's better quality. Quality over quantity is what I like to say. So also want to pitch that one out as well. So I will hopefully be presenting it in Iowa. I will not be in Madison, unfortunately, this year because I'm going to be in London. But I'm actually presenting at the SQL Bits conference. So I'm super excited about that. If you're not familiar with SQL Bits, it's the largest SQL Server conference in Europe. So anyway. So that's it for the formal announcements. The other thing that we like to cover is job openings and whatnot. So is anyone here working for a company right now that is looking to hire? Yes, no, no one? No one's hiring right now, huh?
Yeah, BA opening.
It's,
A business analyst.
speak up, please. Who you work for and where are they located? Huh?
The locations we're at Bioware.
Okay.
We're looking for a business analyst.
A business analyst, okay. You were about to say, Tom?
believe that Microsoft Consulting is there.
Microsoft Consulting is still hiring like gangbusters. Is the PFE division still hiring, whatever they're called? Yep. So if you want to go work for Microsoft, they are hiring like crazy right now. And they have been for the past year. I don't know. It's been nuts. So I believe that's it for the formal announcements. And without further ado, I present to you Patrick and Greg.
All right, thank you very much. By the way, what are you presenting at this?
I actually had two sessions. One is my performance pitfalls of code reuse, and the other is my flagship session, which is why your data type choices matter.
Nice, that's awesome. All right, well, as we said, so we are here. We're from a small firm called Aptiv, both myself and Greg, and today we're going to present ELT architecture in Azure specifically. So like I said, I'm a manager at Aptiv right now. We are a small firm that does everything data, whether it be strategy, data management. We're now starting to get a lot into now the data sciences and machine learning, since that is now taking off. We're now at the analytics paradigm of actually doing a lot of cool stuff. So we do anything, like I said, anything we can think of that works with data. And I love data. I always have. I track everything. I measure everything. I tend to use Google Maps not to see where I'm going, but to see how long it estimates and how cheaply off it is. Greg?
Yeah, and I'm a senior consultant at Aptitude. I love data, I got a lot of passion for it. I especially like business intelligence areas, data visualization. I've worked a lot with Tableau and Power BI and all those different tools, and very interested in the data sciences and the cloud space, which we have been working in quite a bit, and that's what the presentation is on today.
So without further ado, so this is kind of going to be the overarching discussion we're going to have today. It's going to be kind of all about an ELT architecture, and what we really want to do and highlight today is on a very simple level, is talk about how we can combine structured and unstructured. And when I use the word unstructured, I tend to mean anything that's semi-structured. Anything that's not in a relational database, that's not modeled, that's not formatted, they can easily ingest. So we want to think about how can we combine this using cloud architecture, using all these cool new tools. You hear about them all the time, you see them. It kind of used to be like big data. Not a lot of people always implement them unless you have specific use cases. But we want to talk about how you combine it and then actually make use of it. And again, using all kind of ELT. So we're going to talk a lot more about the platform as a service, database as a service, versus the whole spinning up VMs and kind of just running with the infrastructure as a service. We've now seen a lot of saturation with infrastructure, where people are now understanding, hey, we need to have this whole VM infrastructure now. We don't want to manage it or pay for it or have servers anymore, so we have that. Now the next step is going to be, what about our database, and just having a database as a service. So we'll kind of touch on that today. So we think about this and we're like, all right, so let's break it down then into all our different parts. So our first part we're going to talk about is just our structured part. What do we do if we just have data that we're pulling in that's already modeled, already pretty easy to take in, and we just want to stage it and put it into a data warehouse? So what we do here is we talk about collecting it from Excel. You can have some flat files, you can have Salesforce, JD Edwards. I love putting that up there now that we know some other people that work with that. And it's all about collecting structured data. We say collect it because we already know it's in that format, and we just want to stage it and then put it into a business layer. So when we think about all this, it's all about how do we do that EL, how do we land it, and then how do we use to transform it. So within a lot of tools, AWS now, have you heard of AWS at all? No, a couple people. So that's kind of now been the older brother, where they've done a lot of things, they've lived a lot of lives, they've done a lot of stuff within the cloud. Google and Microsoft are kind of infants in that nature, where they're just starting to come up. So we like to highlight what's the new and fun stuff that we want to work with on a daily basis. So before I get too far, I'm going to just say, hey, Greg, he's going to now show us some of the new technologies that he's used to help have an ELT for structured data.
Okay. So before we get too far into it, I'm just going to give a quick introduction to the tool that Azure Cloud. First of all, who's worked with Azure Cloud? How much? Okay. So I'll try to give a little more detail. Sorry for people who have worked there.
What are your thoughts? Just thumbs up, thumbs down?
Big thumbs up.
I see a couple gladiators like, yeah, we're on that teetering maybe.
So the tool I'm going to start with is called the Azure Data Factory. And for lack of a better way of describing this, this is kind of the data orchestration, the ETL tool of the Azure Data Cloud as it is. So you can kind of think of SSIS as a SQL Server kind of on-prem tool. There is no SSIS on the cloud right now. If I wanted to move data from, say, an on-prem server into a cloud server, the tool I would use most likely is Azure Data Factory. And Azure Data Factory is made up of 3 or 4 components here. The first one is the idea of a data set. That's where you define, say, a select star from a table, on-prem table, of an on-prem table is a data set, right? And then you have this idea of linked services, and this is where you're, for example, an SSIS may be making an ODBC connection. It's kind of that equivalent in my mind. And sorry, Azure people, if that's not quite right, but I know SSIS as well as or fairly well, so that's what the language I'm going to use. So a linked service points to an endpoint, and then a data set is the definition of that data, and then I'm going to do something with it, and that's called activities, and those activities are going to occur in a pipeline. And so if you can kind of imagine this whole thing is a pipeline that has activities going on. And so the first demo I have here is I'm going to take a source, and this table I'm calling T-source. This is just a date dimension that I created using T-SQL on my local server. And I installed a data gateway on my machine, which allowed me to create a linked service to my machine. And then I did a select star from that table, and I did what's called a copy activity into an Azure SQL table. So let's just take a look at first what that code might look like. And I think where I'm gonna go, I'm sorry for putting a blob of code up here, but this is what working in Azure Data Factory is right now. So if you can imagine, it's like, I do the equivalent of working with SSIS if you had to work in the XML only. So you don't have the GUI. So this picture that I'm showing you, this wasn't like a drag and drop. This was, I wrote the script and it made a picture for me. And specifically, I'm using an add-on that was created here in Studio.
So very similar to SSIS. You have a Studio, you plug in, you write code, and you start seeing a nice picture. So like Greg said, it's very akin to using XML. And how many of you go and edit XML in SSIS? I see a lot of shaking heads because you're like, well, okay, let me take 7 copies of it, place it in 7 different places, and then I'll edit it after I make another copy. Because you don't know. And then you say, well, maybe I'd be cool and use Notepad to edit maybe 30 or 40 things at the same time. Hopefully I have source control, I can back it up and then go to your store.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's you're now writing JSON and not using an interface anymore because, again, it's in its infancy right now.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is, at least what I've been working on in the portal here, so here's the Azure portal, which is pretty valuable, and you create these data factory resources. And for example, one of the tools you can use is the copy data, and you'll see it's in parentheses in preview. That means it doesn't work all the time. It's been kind of, especially certain endpoints like trying to connect directly to my Azure Data Lake store, which we'll get into a little bit later. I had to do a few extra steps to get my endpoints to work. And I have no doubt that, year or 2 out, that these kinds of problems are going to start getting fixed, and that this thing comes out of preview, and it will be a lot more valuable tool.
Yeah, how many of you use Power BI to do anything? Yeah. How many of you have used it for now a year or 2? Yeah. And how much has it changed in the last year or 2?
Hugely.
Hugely.
Bigly.
So I can only imagine now, this is right now, imagine in 2 years when we come back with another speech and say, hey, here's where we are 2 years later.
Yeah.
A lot different landscape.
Yeah, and this JSON script was actually produced by that copy preview tool, and then I pasted it into this project. And what's neat here is you can then publish from Studio out to the cloud Data Factory resource. So definitely pretty cool. The other piece I wanted to talk about here is how you might transform data. So we talked about this is kind of pulling data from a structured source into a cloud source. Kind of a select star from one table and then load star into cloud table. Well, how you might do some transforms, and what's another feature here is that you can call T-SQL from using Azure Data Factory. So you can, for example, again, here's another block of code, but using a SQL Server stored procedure JSON type, you can call this is some made up stored procedure. But you can imagine I could do some sort of transformation or merge. So maybe I select star from my source, put it into a stage table, then call merge that merges it to my destination. And you can do that all at a data factory and kind of move your structured data around like you might with SSIS. All right, that's demo one.
Awesome. So that's how we get structured data. So again, we're all pretty familiar. Greg, we used, what was the actual name? Again, Azure's got a lot of names. It was Azure SQL Database that we put it in for our actual structured data.
Right.
And that's their, again, platform as a service or database as a service.
Any quick questions about that? Like, kind of making sense?
All right, so that's the lot easy, not so much cool. Now I would say, what about this data lake? What is that? And all we want to do with a data lake from our perspective is we just want to fill it up. We just want to use it as storage for right now. When we've done a lot of architecture, we've looked a lot into this, is that's where the key component is, the key difference is the pricing of when do you pay for stuff and what are you doing with it. So when we use the data lake, again, it's for structured, not structured, unstructured, or semi-structured data that we may or may not be using, but something we're not using all the time. Because if we're going to pull from the data lake and want to read and then transform or structure that data, we have to pay a heavy cost to pull it out and analyze it. So it's something that we're going to want to store for maybe future use once in a while that we can then spin up some powerful stuff and crank through that. So what we're going to talk about now here is how do we just ingest some data? What are some use cases? Because it's not just using, hey, we're pulling a structured data from an operational transactional system. It's a whole different set of things. And again, like a unicorn of big data, how many have really used a lot of unstructured or semi-structured data? See a couple hands, because again, it's unless you have that specific use case, there's not a lot of time and effort for you that work your 40, 50-hour jobs to just go around and have fun and play with some unstructured data. Although we all know there's a lot of data sets around. So we say, all right, now that we have this awesome lake we want to fill, well, how do we fill this lake? It's very large, as you can tell. So we have things like Internet of Things. It's, again, another fun buzzword. But this is something that's going to be around. I can't think of all the things on Amazon, all the little dots you can press, all the sensors in every washing machine, all the machines that Amazon employs at their nice factories to say, hey, go pick all of this merchandise so that we don't have to do anything. And it's really cool, but you have to track all of it, you have to have processes, you have to have infrastructure in place to measure all of that. So we can talk about Event Hub. So Greg, what's an Event Hub?
And somebody call me out if I'm well, but how, like a case study for Event Hub would be like, I have a bunch of buildings and there's a bunch of sensors on it, right? And so these sensors are constantly pinging out information, and I want to collect that in real time or maybe less semi-real time. And so Event Hub acts as exactly kind of what it sounds like, is as it sees events, it will collect this data and ingest it into the cloud.
That's great. So it's automation with it. And again, it's using our new technology, our Internet of Things. And again, then you start connecting all that together, which we'll get to in a later point. And then we have, well, what about Twitter data? We all love now doing sentiment analysis.
The thing about the Internet of Things with,
Yeah.
with the Event Hub is
Yeah.
when you have individual sensors around the entire building, that individual sensor isn't going, every individual sensor isn't going to get to your database. That's what the Event Hub is. You can have multiple Event Hubs which collate all the data and then put that into your data lake.
It's good clarification.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Somebody say, okay, well, now we have some other stuff. What about Twitter? We all love doing sentiment analysis. We can all love to say, hey, was Aptiv mentioned a bunch of good times? I hope so, or a bunch of bad times after our SQL pass discussion. And we'll start to see a graph and make, hey, I feel really good today or really bad today. So we say, well, how do we collect that kind of stuff? And so again, we can use some kind of a logic app. And kind of like an Event Hub, the logic app's going to say, hey, when I have some logic of some event happening, let's go capture and collect that data. And let's write it to our database. Same kind of thing, because you don't want to have to go out and do that. So it's going to just go and you can call it as many times as you want. You can look for it as many times as you want. You set it all up. And again, you have all this as services. You have this all set up in the cloud where it's spun up and down as you need that pricing structure, as you need more power, less power, certain times a day, certain times not of the day.
And one thing I might emphasize is you might not quite know what you're capturing. Like you might grab all the data that's available and you don't know the schema And that's when we talk about like extract and load rather than extract and transform and load. When you're working with the lake, what's nice about the lake is when you load into to say a SQL table, you kind of have to know that schema. You have to have the defined data types, right? This column has to go to the map to this column. Well, when you're ingesting into the lake, you don't need to know any of that. You can just say grab everything and drop it into this flat file in the lake. And you know, if you can imagine, if you're dealing with lots of data, or like I said, semi-structured data that you don't know what the schema looks like at this point in time, it makes a lot of sense to just grab it and dump it somewhere.
I said we just want to fill up this lake. I always think of it. I used to live in Chicago, and it's like Lake Michigan. Just there, people dump a lot of stuff in there, and occasionally you want to go use the lake. I might want to go swim or suntan or go to North Avenue Beach and play volleyball and see all the tourists that are riding divvy bikes. And it's fun, but you don't use it all the time because sometimes it's more of a pain in the ass to use than it is not to use. So you think about, hey, let me just store stuff there. And so we say, hey, what can we store? And then one more thing is, well, what about if you have some JSON? Again, we've seen a lot of JSON files and JSON data, like XML was, is you can store anything you want, any way you want. It's unstructured, store whatever you need. And nowadays, the thing that we've seen now with ELT and infrastructure and architecture is it's going the way of development. It's a lot more custom development. We're now writing JSON. We're now pulling in programmatically using object-oriented languages. We're not using so much our transactional SQL all the time. We're starting to see a branch of the two. I teach class well, I'm saying, well, now the information systems and the computer science are kind of coming together now. We're kind of saying, hey, we're not at odds with each other anymore. We're now need to talk to each other. I need to know what those developers do because I need to learn what the infrastructure is and how it works. Any other web app stuff that you've talked about, Greg, that you've seen? Cool.
Yeah, we'll keep.
So then we say for this, if we go back to our presentation, we say, well, hey, what we want to do here is